I am the principal of Town Planning and Urban Design Collaborative, and leading a team of planners and architects and engineers and artists through a week-long exercise to get your input before we start working on a project. So, how many of you have participated in any sort of a public event or development project? Okay. How many of you have participated in it in like the last month? Right. Okay. So I understand there's lots of development going on around, and lots of you are interested and concerned and participating in the process that these other groups have. So for those of you who have been coming and showing up, and we're going to talk about other developments, we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. I know that a lot you have going on in your lives. Come into talking about things you're worried about. It's difficult to do. So thank you for that. How many of you have been to a discussion like this before the developer put it into paper? Okay, we got one. For those of you who don't know, it's very unusual. What we're doing tonight is that we haven't put it into paper, haven't begun to make the first part. We've been doing our homework, we've been studying, we've been looking at the land, we've been looking at the infrastructure, we've been looking at traffic and those sorts of things. But for anybody who's here tonight to know what's being proposed, the answer is, I don't know. Nothing's being proposed right now. What we're trying to do is get your input. We want you to start talking to us. And the way that we do that is this fancy word, charrette. So the charrette is really just a forum for you to be able to give input in a number of different ways. So tonight we have sort of opening presentation, kickoff, hands-on workshop afterwards. And so the reason why we do a presentation at the beginning is, again, not to present a project or an idea or anything else, to present some planning concepts, principles, ideas of just in general, high-level things that then you all can respond to and let us know what you're thinking about or whatever. And then the hands-on workshop that you're going to do afterwards is your opportunity to be a planner for the night, to be a part of the team, and to literally pick up the Crayola markers that happen to your inner child and draw. So here's what I'd like to see. Now, the one thing that we know already what it looks like is nothing, right? If the answer is I want to see nothing, we already know what that looks like. We can just look out there. So assuming that nothing isn't the answer, let's go ahead and let's go through the process tonight. And at the end of this initial presentation, before we get into the workshop, I'm going to open it up for a couple of questions in case anybody's confused about something or didn't make sense, whatever. Then at the end of the workshop, each table, a lot of things, I'm going to do it quickly, it's going to go through their sort of top 3 big ideas. I'd like to see. Now, if what you said, what you're going to say has been said already, then skip that thing. Some of these were repeated in the tables before. But if it's new, then we want you to share it. And we're going to be documenting and marking and writing things down as we go. And then the maps that you're going to mark up will actually, so we can see where all the ideas come together. That's going to set us off in the right direction. So starting tomorrow, my whole team will be here in place and we'll start tomorrow. I have a series of technical meetings, topical meetings, to talk about infrastructure, traffic, and a lot of the things that we've already been doing that are concerned in detail. We'll have representatives hopefully from city departments will be there as well, and they're open. The whole process is open. Then we have our design studio where we'll be working and being here. So you can just drop into the any time. You're like, hey, I had an idea in the shower. Popped in my head last night when I was having an idea about development. And so I wanted to share that with you. If you missed something or you couldn't come, or there's people who aren't going to be here tonight. We're recording all of this too. So available so you can share links with friends or whoever can miss out. So hopefully through this week, what you'll start to see is that this is different than maybe what you're used to. And it's different because we believe that this is the way you should. Not different, it's not a strategy or technique. It's just the way that we do all of our projects. I started my planning from 20 years ago. We work all over the country. Half of our clients are cities, counties, and the other half are developers. And so we get to see issues and concerns all over the country. And, you know, we realized that rather than trying to come and say, hey, here's this plan we created, let us convince you why you like it. Would it be better if we just asked you at the beginning what you might like to see? Then we can start to see if we can incorporate that into the plan. And at the end of this week, well, we give ourselves a week. So we're going to finish our work on Friday. We're going to come back on Tuesday night. And we're going to present to you the plan that we will have created during this week. Our renderings and the things we've heard from you. And then, as always, we'll open it up to Q&A and I'll roll and talk. So, for the big prelude, get into it here. I apologize for those of you who are in the far back. I know this is a small screen, but this will be online, so you can go back and watch it. And all right, and on this side. Yeah, so here's the team. This is, there's me, Craig Hoover, in the back there, Jessica, Anna, Sabrina, Scotty from Reagan Smith Engineering, Jay, Sheridan. We have architects that are coming. And so you'll be seeing these people around this week, and so you're more than welcome just to come up and chat with them. So anytime we're thinking about development, we need to be thinking about, you know, what are the ultimate goals, what's the strategy, and so we start to look back and see what's come before. So looking at the Williamson County Comprehensive Plan, we've been studying that. We've been knowing that part of it, the concern is like rural character, preserving and protecting rural character. What is that, right? And so we try to define what that is and kind of understand, and that's what the comp plan sought to do as well. And you know what we see a lot of times is the idea of just like, okay, let's just make the largest lots possible, and people can do about whatever they want after that. And so you end up with these, like right now, most of the counties 5 acre, 1 unit per 5 acre, which isn't a farm. And you know, it isn't a subdivision necessarily, and so you end up with sort of like really large lots with giant 5 acre node lawns in front of them. And so you still lost something. You lost what is the essence of Williamson County. And so trying to understand, you know, what that is. And there's this, you guys have maybe seen this chart before, probably an updated version. This is the growth projection for the county. And, you know, in 2010, it was 184,000 people. And then 2040, looking at 536,000 people. You know, where in the world are they all going to go? Well, this is an older statistic that was pulled out during the comprehensive plan process and before the county worked on its growth strategy as well. So people are, it's a desirable place, and that's part of the problem. It's so desirable. So as the county was going through the comp plan process, they're like, okay, well, do we want to continue on with sort of business as usual, sort of letting people develop here and there willy-nilly, or do we want to have this sort of town and country model where there's a clear distinction between what is country, rural, you know, sort of that rural character, and where development should occur. And so they went through a lengthy process. They evaluated the 2 scenarios. They had these evaluation criteria, any character, growth, traffic, urban needs, and overall fiscal impacts, because there's obviously how things develop or not has an impact on the economy of the community. And so after they went through these evaluations, they decided to do this town and country scenario. And so this is actually interesting. This is inverted. So what's white would be the town, and what's colored would be the country. So we go through, and so the citizens, people who came and participated, overwhelmingly supported town and country. The advisory committee that was set up, unanimously decided town and country. Everybody more than voted country. So recently, they've been working on and just adopted this new growth plan, growth strategy, right, for the county. So that's kind of like the comp plan was high level, and they zeroed in a little bit more in detail about how do we want to grow and where do we want to grow. And so this was the growth map in 2010, I think. And so you see like grassland here is a big orange blob, is a big blob there. And so then they updated it, and so a lot of grassland kind of went offline, went offline. They made some little pockets here and there for what they call hamlets and villages. And so this is really sort of codifying and starting to establish that town and country character in more detail. And so that's, you know, hot off the press, which is good. Now, a lot of times when we pop up an image like this, people go, well, yeah, I know, I participated in that process, and I totally disagree with that plan or the findings or whatever. And that may be the case, but right now that's what's adopted, and that's what the law of the land, if you will. And so we're taking this as a given, that this is the growth framework. And so this slide actually kind of sums it up in a nutshell. So the old way of doing development, what you're not thinking about a town and country model is, sort of blue represents development, and you can take 30,000 homes and spreading them across 80% of the land. Here, they've taken 38,000 homes and actually clustered them and done a smaller footprint. And so you've only developed on 16% of them. And so you actually can truly conserve the rural areas by doing things more densely in the areas that are intended growth areas. Now, that said, I don't know if some of you are farmers, a lot of times we see maps like this, and people are like, well, my land is in the white area, that's the country, and that was what I was kind of on for an inheritance for my kids. I was going to sell the farm, and it was going to be development and all of that. And so, there are often competing interests about, where conservation is going to occur. But ultimately, this is kind of a way to move forward. So the regulatory framework in the city of Franklin, we're right here at the boundary, city limits. In the city of Franklin, there's an urban growth boundary. So there's the city limits, which are blue, and then all of this tan is the urban growth boundary. And part of that growth strategy that the county came up with was an interjurisdictional agreement. So all of the municipalities within the county participated in this multi-year process where they, agreed to, for instance, not extend and not to annex property outside their growth boundaries, which is a big deal. It means that everybody, like the line is actually a line now, as opposed to just sort of doesn't mean much. And so, once you do that and you have that sort of regulatory infrastructure and the county and all the cities agree to this, then you're able to start to move forward in a way that has true conservation. So the city limits and the urban growth boundary property we're talking about, kind of all around this here, is squarely within the urban growth boundary. There's also in comprehensive planning for Franklin, Vision Franklin, it's called this Goose Creek Basin. And so they did sort of a suitability analysis for annexation. And so they said, well, some areas maybe one day will be annexed, and other areas it makes sense to do them in the short term. And so we are here, and we're within the short-term annexation ability. And what it says is that properties east of I-65 should be a mix of residential and commercial uses that serve the local area. And so we'll talk about more of what that means. What it doesn't mean is strip malls, doesn't mean apartment complexes and those sorts of things. So those are kind of the framework of the regulations that are in place. They also have the development suitability map, and we are in the green area that's called the most suitable area. And it's because the way that they assess, there are multiple sort of layers that go along with how they assess what's suitable and what's not. Some of them were, proximity to infrastructure. Some of them were, proximity to parks and open spaces, those kind of things. And so they took all that together, and because if you have to extend your infrastructure way out in the countryside, that's a huge economic cost to the whole region to do that. And so obviously you start to see the areas that are closer into the city that are adjacent to existing infrastructure, sewer, et cetera. Those are the ones that are most suitable for development. So we fall into that most suitable category. So then in Envision Franklin, they have what are called design concepts. And these design concepts are, when you really think about it, kind of like future land uses. And so it talks about, in the future, here's what would make sense on a property, X, Y, and Z. And so they have all these different colors, and I think there's something different design concepts. And so as you, look towards the future, figuring out what you can do with the property, you start looking at these design concepts. Well, currently, what we've got is neighborhood commercial on the corner here, and then the rest of this is what's called single-family residential. And in the single-family residential design concept, what it talks about is the idea of having a mix of different sizes of houses, but there's not any open space requirement per se. And so that's one of the things that we're thinking about. Okay, well, does that make sense? And then this is nearly 80 acres, right? And so trying to think about, how do you create a place that is interesting and unique and adds something to the overall as opposed to just being a net negative community. So here we are, here's the site. I think this is a really interesting image. So this is today. So you see Oxford Glen and of course Park and Cedarmont Farms, Albany Point, Abington, and others. And so this is today. This is 1999. And so what you notice is there's no Hurst Park, there's no Abington. Albany Point was just a twinkle in the eye of the developer. Cleared some trees, it looks like. Oxford Glen was the same, sort of dashed on there. And then Cedarmont Farms, they're like the pioneers. I'm sure what year that place was developed. But pretty much everything else out here was just random houses along the roads. So how many of you were on this slide? Living here, sorry, 1999. How many of you? Great, perfect. So, all right, let's do this. Let's see, how many of you were? So we got 5 years. Put up your hand. Oh, yeah, living here 5 years. And when I say something that's not a perfect applicable, you take me in that 10 years, 20 years, 30. So he's the one. 40 years. We got contest 50 years. Oh, you have 40? Okay, wow, that's amazing. So all of you have to turn and say thank you all for letting us in. So that's amazing. That's one of the longest that I've seen. We do that exercise a lot. Because what you see is in a place like this where you have that explosive growth curve like that, a lot of times you have new people here. I've only been here for 23 years, I think. In some ways I'm a relative old timer, yes, but so in Envision Franklin, there's a document called Connect Franklin. It's like the major thoroughfare plan for the city as well. And so you see all these roads here. This is not like on your GPS on your phone where that's a traffic jam. Here it is, right? But these are major arterials, freeways, major collectors. There's all mean things. And then some of them are dashed, and those are future connection points as well. And so we've got major arterial 96 and then major arterial on Arno Road coming through as well. So some of you may not know this, but you may if you live around here. This is the intersection of Arno Road, and there's a design that is moving forward. I guess it's just on construction at some point here soon to improve that intersection. So it looks like they're going to add another turn lane. So you have two lefts and then the one right there. So hopefully that'll help with things. And then you may not know this either unless you lived on the south side of the road there across the property and you had little flags in your yard. But part of the Connect Franklin plan is to widen Arno Road from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. And so it almost happened already. If you saw those flags go out, and then apparently I guess there was septic fields in people's front yards, and they had not realized that, and so they had to halt that. So anyway, so yeah, so that's in the City of Franklin's plan. One of the other things that we've noticed is in this area we have park. Here's the property here. So we have Trinity Park, which are I guess ball fields and stuff, and then we got Southeast Park, Liberty Park. But there's not really much in the lines of like parks just to go and kind of roam around, unless you wanted to go play ball or something. So we noticed there's sort of a lack of those sorts of things. So we started looking and doing some math based on the city's standards and regulations, trying to figure out, because one of the things people always say, well, how many units are you going to put on here? And I always say, well, I don't know. And people are like, yeah, right. Sure, you don't know. And I'm like, no, I'm going to tell them. But this time I thought I would try to give a better answer than I don't know. I don't know what we want to put on it, but ultimately started trying to do some math. And so we got folks, a city representative here for sure. So we may have got this wrong. This is back of the napkin. So we've got approximately 75, 77, nearly 80 acres of land. If you sort of a normal number for development, you might pull out 20% of the land for infrastructure, like roads and circulation. And then There's a 5% requirement for open space that the zoning ordinance has in it. And then there's tree canopy preservation. And depending on your thought process about development, if you're in favor of less development, it's better. We have a lot of trees. And so the city required us to preserve, I think, 36% of the existing canopy. That's a pretty high number. And then, so that leaves about 40 acres, give or take, left to actually have units on it. And so, so there's one strategy where looking at this and sort of crunching numbers of all the lots for 4,000 square feet, which is what would fall into one of the zoning districts that would be applicable to this single family future land use. So some of the design concept. So that's R6, I think. And then but the other, here's the thing though, it requires that you have a mix of housing or lot sizes, like I said before. And so you can't just do straight 4,000. So here we just, for math wise, did 50% 6,500, which is R4, and then 50% 4,000 square foot lots. And then, so we did the math, and it looks, and again, don't quote me on this. I'm likely to be wrong, but so it looks like potential with the zoning ordinance about 355 units, something, which is a lot. Exactly. I know. Exactly. That's kind of what I was feeling too. No. Oh, yeah. Yes, it is required to do mix, but they don't say you have to have 355 units. Yes, for sure. And so I heard the groan, and that's what I said too when Jessica handed me the number. I was like, oh. So one of the things that we're, as you kind of get to know us this week, is that for us to take a project on and to be interested in working on a project, it needs to be unique. It needs to be special. It can't just be a room of a project, right? And so our goal throughout this week is to find a way for all of us, including myself, to get past the room and to figure out, and we'll learn more too. Like it may be, maybe other constraints that start to curtail how much we can do. But part of what will curtail how much we can do is that we want to create, right? And so this is one of those things where nobody's saying, oh, we have to have this many units in order for this to work. A lot of times you'll hear that. Oh, this doesn't pencil if I can't do 600 units or whatever. It's like, okay, well, yeah, there's a threshold at which development doesn't make sense for any project. But in this case, this isn't the type of project that is formulated. Otherwise, we wouldn't have taken it on. So we're going to go through this week, and we're going to design it based on the things that we've heard about from all of you. And then at the end, we're going to count and see how many units we've had. So that's where we'll kind of get back to it, that number. So hold that in your mind, and we'll go from there. So let's move past the ground first. Yes, sir.
Is underlying consideration that will incorporate this into the same.
Yes, sorry. Thank you for saying yes. I alluded to with all the discussion about annexation, suitability, and all that, but I never said the intention would be to annex it.
What else around?
What else will be annexed?
I mean, except for the parcels that are shown within our boundary. Yeah, we're not dealing with any of the other ones. So some of them, as you'll see, we have like some missing teeth and gaps in our boundary that would have been ideal to have. And, the property owner just wasn't interested in being involved, and it's okay. But we'll plan for the future, because some of those are important connections that will be beneficial to everybody, regardless of your position on development. And so we'll think through that stuff. But real quick here, so I mentioned the tree canopy preservation. The city has its requirements, and thank goodness they do, because not all designers and developers think about it the way that we do. So this is something that's important to us. The idea of having wildlife-friendly design, these are things that are very simple to do. But if you clear cut the land, obviously that's helping. But there are things that we can do to sort of keep the wildlife around that we have on site. It has a lovely chirping bird, all those things. Building with the landscape, as you haven't noticed, there's a lot of terrain, a lot of topography on the site. Some of it's really, really interesting and really cool. giving me ideas for some things we could do to that. The whole thing I was thinking about not having enough parks around, so we have some ideas. But the idea of trying to figure out ways to work with the landscape, and this is all new development that was built. These are all existing trees that are around it. And so trying to find, even on the hilly areas, ways to work with the existing topography and the trees and all that will be important. Trails and parks, here's the trails and parks. So for us, whenever we take on a project, we're always about creating opportunities for not just people who are living within the new development that we work on, but for the surrounding community. Again, sort of like, why would anybody do anything but groan about new development, right? So trying to find ways that there's at least some beneficial attributes to the property. And so trying to find ways that have trails and parks and things as well, and we can connect into larger regional networks as well as those that are on the site and for everybody who's sort of in the area. So, maybe you make one less car trip to go to the park right now than you make. The idea of sustainable stormwater, trying to find ways to incorporate sustainability into what we're doing. Some of the concerns that we often hear about development is like, oh, is this going to flood on my property? I live nearby or next door or whatever. And so obviously we can't do that. That's not allowed, right? So the regulations in place, federal and local regulations. We have our engineers on the team from the very beginning here to make sure that we're looking at all of those things and not just dreaming big, high in the sky.
You say that it won't flood. It has my property from the subdivision that's right up from me on Arno. And we are flooding all the time with mud that comes down on my property. So to say that you can't do it, maybe that wasn't what was supposed to happen, but it did happen.
Fair enough. Yeah. So make sure, please, you mark that on the map so we can know that. And
I have another. Just throwing this out.
Yeah.
Maybe you know this already, but there's a cave that runs there.
We heard, yes. And so one of the things that's very interesting is right now, and one of the reasons I can very confidently say that flooding will be an issue is currently water doesn't leave our site. There are no lakes though either. There's a little pond, I think. And so figuring out where it's going and all that can be a neat exploration. And figuring out, is there a way, because a lot of, with sustainable stormwater, the whole thing is like, oh, you want to ground and go back and recharge aquifer and all of those things. It's like, that may be easier than we think here, because there may be some of those opportunities. So thank you for that as well. But we definitely have noticed there's interesting geology here that also has to be taken into consideration. I think there may have even also been some phosphate mining on the site from the years and years ago, which is normal around here. People fertilizer and stuff. So neighborhood gathering places. So we have that neighborhood commercial area on the corner. It's already part of Envision Franklin. So right now, and probably if you live nearby, you don't think of it. Like historic neighborhoods would have a neighborhood center, a place where you could go, a little cafe, coffee shop, or whatever. And so sort of after World War II, when we started creating the suburbs, we kind of said, well, all of that stuff needs to be separated from the other. And when we did that, also made it all focused on driving here and there. And so like you can go up and down Highway 96 and there's all kinds of strip malls and all sorts of things, but they're not really places that you want in your neighborhood. Not really places that maybe you want to go kind of hang out and grab a cup of coffee or whatever. And so knowing that we have that neighborhood commercial on the corner there, trying to think through, well, what could that be like? And so one of the things we're having all think about tonight is like, if you were to have some commercial node there, what would it be? What would be useful to you? So here's another example of neighborhood gathering. I don't think we have any of that brand yeah.
Got some that are over 300 years old.
Nice. We'll have to on our site, hopefully. I would love that. That'd be great because that's one of the first things we do is go mark and figure out where are the significant specimen trees so we can save them, right? Because for us, this would be quite different if these two trees were here. right? And so we see that as a real feature and asset and amenity to the development, whereas a lot of people would say, those stupid trees are in the way. Ah, the city makes them protect them, all that stuff. So different approach. The other thing is kind of thinking through what the ordinance talks about, the different lot sizes and things, and knowing that we've got that growth coming, that growth curve. We hear all the time about there's a housing shortage. We have a crisis where there's so expensive and all of that stuff. I'm trying to find ways to kind of honor that design concept where you've got the mix of different lot sizes. So automatically you have different price points because some houses are bigger than others. And but the other thing we're thinking about is having a variety of different housing types, kind of what can fit in. So kind of large single family houses and maybe little cottage courts. This is actually a duplex. There's some townhouses. This is actually a 4 or 6 unit multifamily building. And so, typically in Franklin, it's like multifamily. The way that I've kind of understood it is, and we saw this if you're familiar with the Armistead project that been working on over across from West Haven for a few years now. There was actually not any pushback about multifamily in that project because the idea was that the multifamily that would be there would feel like a single family house. It would fit right in. It's a way to have dental density. And I always say, if anything we do, anything that we propose, anything that we design could be described as a complex, apartment complex, then we have failed, right? Because if I were you and I lived across the street or around here, if I said I'm going to put an apartment complex across the street from you, I would say, I feel dead a minute ago. So just kind of keep these in mind as we talk about different housing types and preferences. And because a lot of times what we're seeing is, and a lot of the lots that are around too, maybe an acre big or whatever. And then for those of you who live in them, at the time you go like, it's a lot of yard to take care of. I really would love something that's not so big. It's like I don't have that Labrador that I used to either. Now I've got a Chihuahua. And so maybe I'd like to downsize. Well, where am I going to go? Senior living overall in the strip mall, or am I going to go to here or there or whatever? And so looking at ways to be able to provide a multitude of housing types for different stages of life. Or maybe some of you have kids who've grown up here, they've gone off, they got a good education. In Franklin, it's near enough to Nashville and has its own job base too that they can actually move back and come and live around. But everything's so expensive, and so they either can get an apartment in an apartment complex over in Cool Springs, or they can wait until they're 45 or whatever. And so trying to find ways to provide that sort of mix of housing means it makes it like, oh yeah, I could just see my son or daughter who just graduated from college with a finance degree living in a corner unit in this fourplex apartment. Sport, whatever. And so those are the kind of things that we're thinking about this week. And then the other thing is, maybe I should put this person, making it walkable and bikeable. Obviously, when you talk about trails and stuff, that's applied, but making sure that whatever we're doing is a place where you can go for recreation, just to get out. You don't have to be stuck in the neighborhood or just kind of walk around your streets of your cul-de-sac or whatever. And then dark skies, having light fixtures that don't send light pollution up. It's nearly too late a little bit. Look around and it's sort of a glow kind of everywhere. But doing our part sort of adds to the ambiance and try to keep the starscape that's up there. So we've been doing some research and we've been kind of listening to the discussions that have been happening online and people giving feedback on the web page and just talking to people about this. So here's some of the things we've heard so far. These are kind of the top things, but not an exhaustive list. So we'll add to it tonight. Need more green space, parks, no more growth, not responsible growth. Need to address housing demand and expense, concerns about infrastructure and school overcrowding, traffic concerns. This is a funny one. Everyone that has moved here is part of the growth they're concerned about. So that's, I always say, like, people complain about traffic and they sit in their car, this traffic is so terrible. And I was like, it's so funny. If you roll down your window and the person next to you on the window, they'd be saying the same thing and they're talking like you. And so it's kind of interesting. But they also said, for this service, that we appreciate the developer holding meetings and inviting and involving the community from the beginning. And then people are seeking clarity on what's proposed. So hopefully I made it clear that there's nothing proposed yet. And so we're going to work on that together. And, yeah, so next steps. So we're going to get into the hands-on workshop here in just a second. Then one I didn't say also is everything that we're doing tonight is a bonus. This is above and beyond, because normally the opportunity you have to give input into a project, like I said, comes after design is already baked. The other thing is it's in the city's official process. So there's a requirement that, somebody doing the development has to have a neighborhood meeting, in which case that's where they are presenting their plan to you and getting their feedback on it. And then there's planning commission hearings and BOMA hearings and all that kind of stuff, where you're, City Hall at the, standing up at the lectern and you got 3 minutes and all that stuff. So just know that all that we're doing right now is in addition to all of that, right? Hopefully we'll have elected and appointed officials who will come out this week. They get invited. It's very busy process. So I was shocked at the number of things that we were overlapping with. And so hopefully they'll come. But even if they're not here this week, we'll have the recordings. We'll make sure we share with them. And then you can go to the normal official process where it goes through organization, rezoning, and all of those things. So don't be anxious about this week. This week is the part where it should be fun. You can dream big, and you can still come fight against it down the road if you want to. If you're not convinced, if you're like, because here's the way I look at it. There's a chance that something will happen here, right? There's a chance. Assuming that it does, wouldn't you rather it be a thing that you actually have your fingerprints on or co-authors in creating, rather than just saying, because sometimes we'll have people like, well, I'll finish the presentation, I'll get up and leave. If you have to leave, I'm not calling you out. I'm sorry. But they leave because they're like, I don't want to participate. I don't want to say anything. Then they'll think I support this thing. So just keep that in mind. I'd rather you all talk to us now and try to give us some thoughts and some good ideas, and then you can still come and be against it down the road. If you, hopefully, throughout this process, you will actually find that this is a strategy that you're excited about. And we actually have people, for Armistead, for instance, people came and spoke on behalf of the project at the Planning Commission and the BOMA hearings, which is unheard of. You should have seen BOMA. People got up in green shirts. Armistead. So anyway, so we're going to do that, do the annual workshop, and yeah, but for like 5 minutes, take some hands here, take just a couple of questions, and then at the end, we're going to do Q&A again. I'll sit here and just keep it on the, if you don't get called on these next 5 minutes, write it down. Yes, sir.
So just to clarify, if I heard you correctly, the zoning change today, the zoning is what? Of the total of parcels, the zoning is what?
There's no zoning right now because we're in the county. Well, there's the county zoning. Sorry. County zoning. Yeah. So there's the county zoning. Yeah. What's it called?
MGA1.
MGA1. It's MGA1, which is 1 unit per acre. Yes, sir.
That's what's that belong to this specific traffic, everything needs to up. There's 500 homes on it down there. They figure that's another cars that are on the block struggling.
Right.
This one from the 55 to 96 is wide, and it just comes to my car. Car. Yeah, I don't like to spend a lot of time on it. Hopefully, it's 10 minutes to go to the golf course, and now it's 45 minutes. So we already have this.
Yeah.
Work. So what's being done? Do you have any idea how many homes are doing this?
Yeah. So I don't have all the stats for what's in the pipeline. I heard 1,500 for Smith Farms. That's what he said back there. So yeah,
No,
that's down the road down 96 here. Yes.
Have
Yeah, so the place to look for that is Connect Franklin. So that's the city's long-range transportation plan. It's a master plan that has all of this stuff kind of laid out in there. One of the things that we will have to do, like all development has to do, should do, is a traffic impact analysis too. So we'll have to go and look and say, okay, if we do this on the property, here's what the impacts will be. And then that goes into the pipeline with everything else that's around. So they think about it holistically, even though I know it's sometimes seems like, how could they be if it's different? So I had one over here that popped up. I'll come back over here.
Okay. What is that number?
No, I said all development does. Ultimately.
Right.
And so the good news, I don't know, there's not one. So maybe. Well, so here's the yeah, Tim, right? So here's the thing. So the good news is that the land wasn't purchased yesterday, right? So a lot of times when a developer started a project, they bought it $25, right? And so it's like puts a lot of pressure on the project. So it allows, that's part of the reason why we don't have marching order in that regard. The other thing is if you said just put 80 houses on there, I would say the character that you get doing that is not really interesting, right? So it's like yeah, could be. Hold on. Oh, sorry. Yes. Did you just get it? So say all of those things, but subtract the idea that I have an idea. Like I know that it's hard to believe, and trust me, this is like my 60th, 70th charrette around the country, and you often hear people say, "Really, you're not going to create a plan in a week." We clearly did. Dude, that's what we did for Armistead. That's what we do for all of our projects. What? We will be here. Yeah, well, that's the thing. We start at 9 a.m. and we'll be here until what, 7?
We close at 7, but we're usually working until 2 a.m.
So-
most nights.
Two more questions, then we'll do the Q&A. We'll come back to you and then we'll go. No. No, that's a private lot, so that wouldn't be part of the calculation. Yes, sir.
So, I'm a former traffic engineer.
Oh, from LA.
Spent 24 years, development reviewing that.
Now you're a witness
I
protection.
got a lot of things to say, but, first thing I just did a little research there and I saw the tendency and said that, 2020 said expected to exceed $33,000 per day, the average daily traffic.
On which road?
Right now.
Now, for what? 31,000, yeah. And it says on a typically on a well-designed 2-lane highway, you could have 3,000 to 5,000 cars. And it says that it reduces capacity depending on the shoulder width. There's no shoulder. The lane width, it's like 24 feet wide in some places. And, 50 miles per hour on traffic. I wouldn't put speed limit 50 miles an hour with all the teenagers, right? That's another matter. But anyway, so you've got I dealt with a lot of projects in LA where they're built on streets that are over capacity, and it's tough. And I see on your map you show that retail is going to be concentrated right there at the tip. of the intersection. And, already, I know they're expanding left and right turns there, which, I guess in the Whiting Murfreesboro said it's a good time to start, planning, but I say until the 4-lane road is put in on Arno, and I don't know how you're gonna have, cars. Well, first of all, at this point, you got a Cedarmont Drive, 400 houses, all the cars are pouring out onto Arno right near the intersection. So if you have cars from the project coming on Arno, that would be a real issue.
Yeah.
So,
make sure you mark all that down on your map or exercise. Both, there's a combination of.
but I was going to say like a typical, like a good retail, where you have a good retail development, like you look down the street at Sprouts or whatever, they got a traffic signal on one side, traffic signal on the other side, and they've got a entrance in the middle. Well, because at a acute angle, you're on the hill, you don't really have that exit. I don't know how, retail, how you're gonna,
Yeah.
how you're gonna get in and out of there.
Well, and I think when they worked on Envision Franklin, it's a high level document. That's where that commercial in the corner came from. And, they don't get into that level of detail figuring it out. So it's like, okay, well, it makes sense to have a commercial node at the intersection, right, for access or whatever. But as we go through this process, design of this, we'll start to figure out, like,
If they put a commercial node there, then what's to stop from the nursery across the street putting a Target there? But something else down the street, it like changes the whole character.
Envision Franklin stuff. So, all right, so let's jump into the hands-on workshop, and we'll do Q&A again, like I said, at the end. So if you have a question hasn't been answered yet, make sure you don't forget it, write it down. So what we're going to do on the maps here is got green dots, red dots, blue dots. So red dots for areas of concern. So I imagine there'll probably be lots of dots at the intersection, or red dots. And then we've got green dots for things that are that you like, and then blue dots for opportunities. So then the markers. Hold on a second. Hold on. I love the enthusiasm. 1 second. Couple of super important final point. Pause 1 second. Hold on. The markers on the table, I need you to make sure you're actually annotating what the dot means, what you're putting the dot on, because then we actually know. You're like, oh, this intersection is trash, or oh, there's an amazing tree right here, or can you connect to the trail or whatever. So make sure you mark that stuff down. We're going to do this for 30 minutes. And then we're going to have each table present their big ideas, like I said. And we'll also have these maps all week long in here. So if you want to come add stuff to it, you can. So, ready? Go.
Ready here. I'll try to do this without breathing into the microphone.
Hold on, let me
So we're all from Addington Ridge, subdivision that kind of butts up to one side of the development. And couple of things that we focused on was that the town center or any type of commercial development, coffee shops, pizza shops, sandwich shops, other things like that, clothing shops, picnic things, should ideally stay up where the city's already kind of got it ordained already, that triangle up by Arno in 96. One of the big things we're concerned with is our entranceway is along 2-lane street and down there. So while we appreciate the consideration for potentially tying into development with a roadway somewhere in our intersection, currently we appreciate the tree line more than we do the tie into the area. So we really like to see the development do anything to enhance the screen from our subdivision as far as trees or improvements are concerned there.
All open space.
Yeah, the center space would probably be where the family development and townhomes or condos or stuff would go. And then probably because of the geology and the tree canopy, it would seem to make sense to have the park space, walkways, paths, et cetera, down towards the right side of the development, that existing area there, aside from the challenge of the topography and everything.
It could be like cave exploration or.
Yeah, it's spelunking team.
The in and out part.
Yeah,
To get in and out of all this. It's a really nice-
the entrances in and out of the area are gonna be based on current traffic, regardless of where you end up putting them. Aside from, if they don't have a light other than here at the corner, especially wherever the entrances are in Arno, whether it's as it is now, or if it's 3 lanes or 4 lanes, not having a light at any of the entrances of Arno potentially would be interesting. To say a word, and we're vehemently against any. We're happy to have people come in for condos or townhomes or smaller or larger detached homes. We know that to make their monetary value for their ROI, they're probably going to have multi-level homes as opposed to single-level homes. But we're really not crazy about even the fancy apartments. So no gas stations, no apartments, no convenience stores, no drive-through fast foods. Food places, if it's like a, Chipotle or something like that, a fast casual, but there's not a drive-through. And I think that's reasonable for all of us to understand. That's great.
Awesome, great, thank you. Table two. Table 2. Map. Over. That's okay. You just turn the camera off. It's good
But we didn't have a lot of positive to say.
Hold up a little bit closer.
Okay. We don't, looking at this, we're very concerned about the traffic at 96 and Arno Road, because right now there are over 31,000 cars that make a daily trip on that, according to the state Tennessee Transportation Department. And we've got the Pablo Farms coming in and Coletta Park coming in. And so one thing we don't need without the infrastructure first is more traffic. We'd like to see 1 unit for 5 acres and keep all the trees. No high density clustered in one area. No institutional, commercial, or retail. Smallest lot size. What is that for cost and affordability? Because people say they want workforce affordable housing for our first responders, our teachers, and so forth. I don't think anybody knows what it means. Protect and check for cemeteries, caves, underground streams, and do an environmental impact study first.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Right. Got a couple of additions here.
One other thing about, we want like a Butler around the church. We don't want like commercial jamming.
On the other side.
All right. Number 3. Okay. You don't have anything.
All right, we have a bit of a couple Cedarmont Farms and Abbey Bridge, so different views for sure. Concerns, traffic was definitely on the high list for Arno Road and 96. That was probably more the Cedarmont Farms people, because it's already hard to get out of that neighborhood. We did really want to focus on residential, not the commercial element of it. There's also concerns with the current marks that they had on there with traffic, again, getting in and out of those restaurants that they're added. So to minimize that as much as possible. Wanted to keep the country feel. That's kind of why we moved to this area. So I think most of us had acre lots or about 1/3 of an acre. So that was one of the things we were like, where can we compromise on that? So I guess 1/3 of an acre was kind of the minimum that we were thinking, not having the multifamily or apartments, but just focusing on minimum of 1/3 or higher. What else? I guess didn't know there was a cave on the site, so there's a little bit of concern on that as well. Just so there aren't sinkholes, which are pretty common, down in the south for sure. The access points, we did also talk about the lanes could be added. I guess there was a spot onto 96 from Abington Ridge, and then also the Arno Road, maybe some points coming out of the neighborhood. What else do we have? Worried about kind of commercial creep, like if we allow some restaurants now, will that just continue to go down 96, just continue to grow with more commercial zoning? School population, I think that's another one people have touched on, just wanting to make sure that they're not overcrowded. And construction noise, that was another thing. Again, I think a lot of us live around this area, so we're going to hear it. If there's sure some type of drilling or something, we'll hear it. Traffic noise as well was a thought. On a positive, parks and trail space, we think we're good, whether it's a dog park, a horse trail, something like that. And then we already touched on the turn lanes.
Thank you.
All right, table 4. Yes, table 4. I walked an MP3 again.
With the microphones. Or well, I guess.
He was gonna have you go there, kind of like, so everybody's coming up here. Thanks. Oh.
Good evening. All residents in Abington Ridge, and appreciate the opportunity to participate in this tonight, and hopefully some good things will come from it. We have a lot of the same issues that Barry had brought up earlier concerning the location of parks, for example, also of entrances to the facility itself, especially if there's any plans to do anything off of Abington Ridge Lane itself. We also have concerns about the retail development, which is obviously in the Arnold Road and 96 intersection. Concerned about what types of development would go in there. We don't want to see gas stations. We don't want to see big box stores. We don't want to see multi-level facilities or buildings going in there. On the area immediately to the west of Abington Ridge subdivision, we would like to see that to become a park area, screen our subdivision from what's being built in this development. Some of the concerns that we have, very concerned about the infrastructure that's going to be necessary. We currently live in an area where we are not serviced by Franklin City Water. We've run into situations over the last couple of years where we've been restricted on various things because the water system is not capable of handling what is currently there. We know that there's approximately 2,000 to 3,000 new homes going in the area around us. We're concerned about how that's going to be serviced, and we would be concerned about how this would be serviced as well. There's no sewer in this area, so how are you going to do that? Obviously, traffic is a big concern that everybody has brought up tonight, and we continue to have that concern as well. We're worried about property values, quite honestly. What you're talking about, or what we understand, and it's a possibility, are a lot of smaller homes, small lots that you were talking about some type of affordable housing. As like I said earlier, we don't know what that means. I don't think you're building $200,000 homes. I suspect they're going to be much more expensive than that. And that is going to be direct competition to our existing homes. And that's not why most of us moved into this area. Have a concern about schools and overcrowding. How is that going to be addressed? And I think that's it. Oh, I'm sorry. We've gone through the last 4 or 5 years with the road construction and development. The whole neighborhood or the whole area has experienced
the construction and including blasting. Don't know if that's in the plan, but that is a concern for all of the homeowners in that area. And one other concern that I will bring up that I thought about is the area immediately to the south and the east of where you're talking about this development happening. There's a lot of sinkholes in that area. I don't know if that goes up into the area where you are. I haven't really looked into that, but that is another concern. Just wondering how you plan to address that. Thank you.
All right, so, your table 5.
You're good there. You're good right there. Yep, I can move that.
And then I lived in Albany Point, Hat lives in Cedarmont Farms. I think we echo a lot of the concerns that have already been addressed. A few ideas, positive things that could come out that we discussed in addition to the identified concerns. Walkability, I think there's a lot of potential for sidewalks and just making the trails and the park. There's not really anywhere from Albany Point that you can walk to that's safe for walking. So thinking that and kind of related, Albany Point with Albany Drive and with Cedarmont here, a safe way to cross Arno, maybe a bridge or a tunnel, something that's more than just a basic crosswalk, I think is a real potential, because then if you live in any of these areas here, south and west, you could walk to the retail, you could walk to the park without driving, but there's no safe way to cross. So those are some things that anything else that's not already been covered?
I am concerned that if I look at the map here, there doesn't seem to be any natural place to come out onto 96, which both of us are. We come on Arno Road, most people here. And it's a 2-lane highway, and we do have a light. I'd like to see some place, I don't see a really natural place for an exit out of this development onto 96. But 96 is a street that has the capacity to carry more traffic.
Table 6. Hello, can you hear us? There we go. Easy. Better than the little. Some comments prepared. She's my wife. First of all, I'd like to give you a correction. You said that in 99, Albany Point was just a dream. It was actually built in 99, so you're wrong on that. I would also like to say that it's about the same size as what you're talking about here. That's a model that you really should look at, because I think there's 65 homes, all on acre lots in Albany Point, right across from what you're talking about. That's the value. Brick homes, brick colonials. That is this neighborhood. Don't do something that's going to devalue our properties. I'm sorry.
We go off script. What I'd like to add, save the trees. Absolutely. I just found with the pictures you showed of the beautiful paths, sidewalks, and commercial, and how you're going to get that all in that area. Maybe you will, but my vote is minimum 1 acre lots, no multifamily at all. And if the commercial is going to be on the corner of there, the access to it should be only through that community, not off of either Arno or 96, not on the corner. The traffic would be horrible. There will be accidents, many accidents, and there cannot be the way things exist now. I don't know when this project will start. You can't put an entrance into that development on Arno Road. You can't. It will absolutely kill anybody who lives south on Arno. We all have to turn left, no traffic lights. And now you're putting more traffic on it. Not a good idea.
All right, next table. Number 7. One of the things we can do to help y'all get out of here faster is if we have the next group on deck just waiting, we can cycle through people faster. So if table number 8 wants to come up and be waiting here.
We got a lot of the same comments, especially the last one about Arno Road. Trying to figure out a way, that's what we're showing here on 2, is that entry only from Arno Road, because you don't want the traffic coming all the way up around the corner if they're going here. They can come in here one way only, and you could go out. And because of all the cutouts, the access, I don't know where you put a signal. I mean, it would be best like opposite Oxford Glen or something, but you got a problem there. But another issue that as a traffic engineer I have a hard problem with is the retail on that corner. You can't put a traffic signal right near Arno. It's got to be several hundred feet away, so the entry has to be way down here. You might have some retail over here. I don't think this site is really designed well for retail. I mean, if you're going to put a little and the other thing is, I think if you start, I mean, I'm from LA, but when I turn to 65 and I start coming up, I mean, you got a nursery over there, you got a little church, the character. When you, if you put some retail here that's drawing, and maybe enticing for the community, or you can get your cup of coffee here, but you're going to end up spending another 5 or 10 minutes trying to cross 65 interstate until they widen that. That's going to draw more traffic. And the nursery over there, maybe they'll put a Target there or something. I can see a continuous strip of retail once they start, like a domino effect, putting the retail there. So those are the basic things. And as far as the density too, I mean, I think you don't want to exceed the density of the other housing that's there. So, I don't know what these lots are across here, but they have like some really, really dense housing here, would really change the characteristics of the road. It's not keeping it with the characteristics of the rest of the roadway.
All right, next group. The next group wants to come on now.
We are in Albany Point, and there were a lot of things that have already been covered. One thing that we would really like to see is if there is going to be a development here, that we maintain the tree line and the buffer, so we're not all looking at a development as you drive down Arno, that this all stays green. Because that is one of the reasons we all moved out here, right? Is for the green space and beautiful trees and all that. And so to maintain that sort of buffer, so we're not looking into a new development with this. We all know, and we've talked about, the 6596 interchange is a disaster. And I understand that is a state issue, but we're in Williamson County. We have the most money in this whole state. We should be agitating. And I would ask the developers to also agitate for us. That turns into a clover leaf or something, because you cannot get onto 65. It's just a disaster. So just throwing that out there. No gas stations. No gas stations, no fast food. What do we say? Oh, minimize any access to Arno Road, as we've already talked about, there's so much traffic. If this is in fact gonna be a 4-lane road, Lord help us, it's gonna be an 840 trucking zone, all the way 840, 96 constantly. I mean, our property values are going to go down. So I don't know if you can have anything to do with that, but just throwing that out there as a major concern for all of us. And having another development on there with additional traffic is going to provide further justification for the widening of that road, so that is a concern. What else we have? Oh, we wanted a minimum 1 acre lots. If that's possible. The other thing I would ask for the rest of this week, if it's possible, undoubtedly you guys have actually surveyed this land. You know what is actually buildable and what is actually not buildable. If we could get that information, I think that would be really helpful because it tells us, okay, it's not realistic to put the park here because this is really the only buildable park, right? Or this huge ravine right here is going to prevent us from really doing a commercial venture of anything significant, right? So I think that would be really helpful for the community to have that additional information if you could provide that.
All right, next. And who's ever on deck? Oh, wait, sorry. One thing I forgot to say. I got a real-time fact check a minute ago, so thankfully somebody pointed out that I said that the plans to widen Arno Road, the city was going to do. It is in the Connect Franklin Long Range Transportation Plan, but that's a county road. And then the question was, well, how long is that widening actually ever going to happen? Because one thing to put something in a plan, it's another thing to do it. And so I got to look into that because I have heard that they literally staked out where the widening was going to go in people's yard, and they're like, oh shoot, there's people's septic fields right there where the road's going to go. And so I'm going to look into that and make sure I have the facts right on that.
Hello. So our table is a mixture of Cedar Mount Farms, Albany, White, and then we have a close by our Lincoln neighborhood. Sorry if I get that wrong. We kind of went off the baseline assumption that this is going to happen. This is going to be annexed into the city. So there's not a lot we can do to complain about traffic or anything like that because it has happened. So we're looking at trying to figure out ways to make it. The biggest, so our first thing was this corner is a horrible corner for retail. So I'd like to see it move if you have retail. The other thing that we were talking about retail, but based on some of the other retail in the area, McKay's Mill, some of the South Carruthers, we have strong concerns that it will be viable. That the rent may be too expensive for small businesses to actually survive. So unless you maybe want a Chick-fil-A or In-N-Out burger, that may be the only people that can afford to survive there, which I don't think people want. So
that traffic.
Yeah, talking about that. So that there's some legit concern about putting in a coffee shop. McKay's Mill, I think since I've been here for almost 15 years, it's had like 6 of them that can't stay in business. Other than that, walkable, big as lots as you can do, and parks.
Table is next. What number were you guys?
9.
9. So table 10. Nothing new. Okay, there you go. Fair enough. They're ready for dinner. Yes. Table 11. Same. Okay. Table 12. Anything new? I'll bring it to you. For posterity on the recording.
Oh, great. Don't take my picture. That's on the recording. In the center, we were thinking if you have to squeeze more houses and units into this to make it, worth your while. A senior living center maybe doesn't really hurt anybody around, and people can bring their parents if they want. Doesn't do anything to the schools. They don't drive. Yeah.
It is a very expensive money-making thing. $1 million at least to buy in, and $8,000 or $9,000 a month. You'll be flush at cash.
And then they die. So, and then also just to emphasize, yeah, a lot of anger. No retail up by the corner of Arno and Murfreesboro because that would just make everybody's life and cost a lot of cars and car insurance. And then also in the center is where kind of like in McKay's Mills.
New stuff, there we go. All right. Maybe. I can hold the map for you. Do the.
My group, left me. That's okay. So we're in Abington, and I think if you look at the lot sizes here, you've got your big Point and Cedarmont Farms is bigger. I think we have smaller lots. So they're about a third of an acre. So you have a whole profile of lots here. The only thing is firstborn, which here's more dense. If you put in like a very you totally changed the complexion of the neighborhood. I think that this area has a certain complexion, if you will, of how housing is, and then there's sections in the community, right? You have more dense housing down on 65. This is, if you do this 6,000 square feet with the largest lots, right?
4,000.
Okay, so my house is on 13,000 square feet, so there's gonna be 2 houses on my lot, basically. And we have smaller lots in this group, which I don't like, but you can't fight progress, right?
Yeah, we can.
Well, I think, is this part of Franklin? This is part of Franklin, right? It is not. Oh, it is. Yes, you have to petition. Correct, and you'll probably get approved from.
Well, we're in the urban growth.
Yes, so that's inevitable. That's what I was trying to say. So if you're gonna do this whole thing, I think that this property here kind of drops down, my understanding. And my understanding is they wanted to build on that and they can't park river water. Is that correct? Because we're on, you guys know more than I do on that one, right? We have Bill Crofton for our water. Yeah. And we have septic. And this is very dense, I think, down here compared to over here. We're on septic. So I don't know what you're gonna do there. I think the cost astronomical, and then you're gonna have to have a return on your investment.
Yeah. If you're in the city, then you have to be on the city.
Right, so the cost to actually put sewage into that area, that's gonna increase the cost of that house, right?
More than, well, yes. Yes.
Right, so the house price will be higher than affordability. So we were thinking that since this, we don't know, it's brought up that which areas can be developed. If this drops down, maybe this would be a good park area, residential. And as far as commercial, I don't like it. I don't want to see Chipotle. If you're gonna do it, I'd rather see see what West Haven has kind of these quaint little buildings that would fit into the aesthetic. I don't want it West Haven per se. I'm talking about how the building looks. I don't want it to look like, I don't want it to look like I have a Chipotle.
When you go to see them, was that?
No, I don't want West Haven.
Like they talk about how West Haven, they built the apartments and stuff. Those apartments are $1 million. I don't know who's buying those apartments.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want the West Haven apartments. I'm saying the buildings that the retail has the cutesy the little storefront that you saw in, you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I don't mean that. I don't want it. But I want continuity.
Having $1 million apartments. I mean, if we have to have apartments, they should be $1 million because that's gonna make my property value go up. I don't want like $200,000 apartments. I would rather have the $1 million.
All right, next table is here. 50. Most of the issues have been touched on, but just a couple of things just to keep it low. So we've got a lot of red here. We don't want drive-throughs. We don't want national brands. Commercial type. Frankly, it's commercial 58 section, which is
this creates a lot of risk. One of the things we also thought about is all this new housing here, also is published, which means a lot of traffic. This section here. So I think that's something that needs to be considered. There's a lot of traffic. Oxford plan, Park. Commented on before that the property, the properties at First Point are the smallest of what you see here, so it's not really small than that. You get something greater than that. So I think that's a consideration. Definitely need some parks, walking, biking, and also, probably a pool. Keep these people from going to the other place. Just community and pool. Those folks. We talked about property values and how long the project's going to take, and keeping the fast food chains out, and then just how do you get out of here on 96? Where do you put the light? So I think that's pretty much it. So we talked about just keeping the property sizes at place.
17.
It's fine. Basically, we're the same. If they need to be 1 acre lots or bigger, you need to keep what this area is and why we all live here and why we all moved here. You've missed the mark. Like, you call this net negative. We're not net negative. We are a great community. We love our rural lifestyle. We love the green. We love our little homes. We love our business. We're not here to be and we're not here to be upset. Like, you really need to stop and think about that, because that's not us. You came to the wrong side of town. This is why we're on this side of town. So I just need you to consider that. We have character. You said we don't. We do. We don't need your neighborhood to have character. We have character. And we enjoy our rural areas. Just kind of decide who you're talking to, because you kind of put us some negatives and we're proud of our negatives.
Yeah, so this is an important part of the process, because you just said that I said several things that I said that. Okay, so when I said net negative, I said what we want to do is make sure that what we're doing on the site isn't just a net negative to all of you, right? Right, of course. So you make a park and those sorts of things. Yes, absolutely. So, but you also, net negative means completely negative, right? So as we've heard at some of the tables, people said, well, if we're going to have something, then parks, trails, and so those are positives, right? So it doesn't mean that it outweighs the negatives. The other thing, when I said it doesn't have character, I'm not sure, you said you wrote it down, but I'm not sure what I said that made you think that. In my mind, every place has character, right? You have a certain character for your. No. Yes, no, thank you. Absolutely, no, thank you for that. I don't think we're bringing character to a place that has no character. What we're going to talk about, and I'll get into this, thank you for that, is one of the meetings, actually, I think, of
Housing and
community character. And so we're going to get into the details of that. What does that mean? So for instance, like that image that I showed when I was saying that this neighborhood didn't exist and I was wrong. The houses that were here before were farmhouses. And then the first neighborhood came in. And all of the lots in that first neighborhood were way smaller than the farm that they replaced. And then another neighborhood came in, had lots that were smaller than the first neighborhood. And now you have the one that we were just talking about on the northwest, that's even smaller. And so the thing about character is it isn't static, right? It's because if it were, we'd all just still be on farms. We'd have farms here. And so as we think about what does that look like, assuming that something happens, that some development happens and that you all don't do a Kickstarter campaign and decide to buy this and make a park, or the city decides to make a park, or the whomever, assuming that something happens, we want to incorporate those thoughts and ideas as opposed to us just going to. And one of the things that I am a little concerned about is a lot of the maps that we talked about tonight said no, this, that, and the other. And I get it, right?
It goes without saying. It's just, like, it's very rare for people to go, yes, please. You know, do this development. We've been missing out on more development. And we, in fact, can't stand looking at those woods or that farm or whatever the case may be. And so it would be highly unusual for people to say anything except for no. Now, that said, this is your opportunity to say no, but if it has to, then this. So I'm going to make sure that you'll take me up on an offer this week. I've heard the no's. I get it. I would probably say no too if I were you, right? I get it. Don't miss this opportunity. Don't just say no all week long, and then we come and we'll see you at City Hall. That's not the way that this is supposed to work. And so we really do need several people came up to me, you know, you really know you must have something in mind. You must, I can't say it enough times. So I'll share with you what I said to them. We have, at my company, we have 2 rules. One is no jerks allowed, which means we don't work with jerks and we don't work for jerks. So all the people on my team, if they're a jerk, I need to know. Second rule is no lying. We are not allowed to lie. And so if I tell you we don't have a plan, I need you to say, okay, fine. And if you can't deal with that, like, and trust me, then just show up on Tuesday. I will have a plan on Tuesday, and you'll aha, right? One way or the other, I'll have a plan and I'll show you. We may be working and still coloring and all that stuff, and we may start half an hour late. Hopefully not. But I need you to participate in this process tonight as best you can. Uh-oh. One of my team members is, are you about to say something? Yeah, next Tuesday, sorry. This next Tuesday. Don't come tomorrow. Yeah, we will not have a plan. Did you guys have it at your table back there? Nothing new that. Okay, perfect. Go for it. Let me know.
I do. Why not?
Yeah, so we're starting the Q&A now.
Yes. We're talking about progress to make a lot.
Not necessarily. Right.
Well, why not leave it in the county, leave it done the way it is, build what you're allowed to build based on current location. Why? You walk in here, maybe you don't have a development, you have an assumption that it will be annexed, and you will be able to build higher.
Correct. That is, yes, annexation is, yeah, okay. I didn't know you all did that.
Why?
Yes.
Not county.
Yes. So I believe that the way to actually conserve the rural is to develop within a growth boundary. That's why the growth boundary is there. And so the intention of the county and of the city is embodied within that future growth plan and the comprehensive plan. So we are
fill up that boundary. They just find the boundary. So thinking you're just contributing to the problem by saying, I'll build it.
The boundaries are stretched.
So right now,
I mean, some goes up here and stay good. Everybody else is hiding.
up until recently, you didn't have a growth boundary that was agreed upon, and people would have just annexed willy-nilly. The county didn't have 5 acre zoning, all of that stuff. So a lot of the things that we look at on a map where we go like, what in the world? How did people decide to allow that? That's from before these regulations were in place. And so now they're there. Growth boundaries, yeah, absolutely. They're only as good as people, hold the line. This is for the first time, there's this interjurisdictional agreement where cities will not annex land that isn't in their growth boundaries. And so, yeah, ultimately, like what happens is down the road, when we fill up, then I suppose they reassess the boundary. That's like a normal place. But unless we're going to stop having children, then their growth, people have to go somewhere. And he said, well, they'll just go over there, not here. And so that's fair enough. And I don't mean here. I don't mean here. I mean to Leaper's Fork or to Triune or to wherever the case may be. So they're having the same discussion, which is the reason why it's necessary to have growth in place. Because otherwise, up until you had it, you were totally unprotected. Yes. Yes, you know.
One thing that I forgot to mention, that we would ask no rental. Anybody who's living in a neighborhood is fine.
No rental units, if you can hear what she said. Yeah, so.
And your people
it's illegal also. You can't, because Fair Housing Act doesn't allow you to say you can't.
Transportation, transportation seems area is concerned. I live in Cedar Park. To get out graciously. Might spread by the south. So, all that to say, I would love for you to put the picture back up that shows what the state is doing. My understanding is, talk about all these lanes, talk about 4 lanes. They are only making a turn lane off of 96 onto Arno Road to Cedar Park. And it is.
Interesting. Well, so we're tomorrow at 9 a.m. We're talking about transportation and utilities, and all that stuff, so we'll have more.
Have that available, and you need to have more information from the county. Because that is a county road. At what point will they 4-lane it? I don't see that happening in the near future, so that just.
Yes.
So why do you guys think essentially that people don't want 1-acre lots with reasonable sized homes on them? Because like if you talk about less people stop having more children, well, like my generation has stopped having more children. And all of my friends who come over, they talk about how quiet it is, how much they wish they were on an acre lot, but they can't find one that doesn't have a $7 million house on it. I don't think people want that when they clearly do.
I don't think that people don't want it. But what you see is if you look at the housing mix in the city of Franklin or in the county, it is disproportionately single family, like I'm gonna make up a number, but 90% or whatever. So it's massive, right? So a lot of people like that. So somebody mentioned earlier the emergency service provider, firefighter, teacher, and all that stuff. Is that something that is desirable? So how are you going to do that? So I see a head nod there.
They put that over by the factory, right behind the house that I used to live in over there. So this is my current road.
How about the middle eight? Middle eight, right across the street from the factory.
No, not across the street from the factory. It's on Liberty and Lancaster. Also is in the cadet. And we went against that. It's going to send 45 homes of traffic. You're going to make that a right in and right out through that neighborhood. It's already a low for the area. And so, like, we're not necessarily against that if it's done right, but I just think that there are everybody who comes out and visits us. I have friends all across, Middle Tennessee, says it's so great to have a reasonable sized house on an acre, and that is what they want. Now they have to go out to like Christiana to get that when they can get it here. But that's not we know that that's not profitable to do that.
I mean,
It's a better business model.
I could imagine that you could build mansions on $1 million or 1-acre lots that would be probably profitable.
Why are you doing density? Like it has to be no bigger than a quarter acre. Would it be an acre? Well, it's possible for the city that people larger size versus we want to cram as many houses in.
Yeah, so right now the single family residential design concept, as they call it in Franklin, is 4,000 square foot lots or 6,500 square foot lots.
Range or 5,000, like in that range.
Something between them, right? Yeah, I don't know.
It can get big. Those are minimum. You can make it, I think, but there's a.
So what size square foot home goes on like this?
2 level, 1 level, 2 level, like you're getting the smaller square foot homes. If you have
It's great. It reminds me of where I grew up, for sure.
you can probably get 100.
Yeah, because we have so much. That's the thing. It's like
There'd be, and then it'd be like. That's not necessarily.
we have a housing shortage too.
That's what
That's the thing.
That's right now, all of our homes.
I'm sorry. Yes, so you and then you.
Yeah, yes, just a question, comment, probably. I've been to a lot of these graphic workshops, and I've never been to one where you start. It's kind of a unique thing for me. I can see what you're trying to do, but, it's kind of like, you know, we're presenting this property with all the cutouts in that without any roads. It's like you gotta have some like boundaries, like otherwise people are gonna say, oh, you get a retail, we can put a traffic signal 100 foot from Arno Road. You can't do that. There's certain things you can't do. So I think, and I don't know what the transportation part, I'm gonna come tomorrow, it's gonna be, but it's like, if you don't have any entry roads, or you know, I mean, you can kind of figure out, hey, we're gonna put housing here, we're gonna put a retail here, but I kind of feel that we have to have some, you know, skeleton to start to work with, because otherwise, you know, you're just kind of winging everything.
Yeah, no, just to clarify too, I mean, there are regulations on, so like how close you can put a road to an intersection, those kind of things that we'll have to incorporate into the plan. Two things, I don't have that off the top of my head, and second, I thought y'all wouldn't find that very interesting at this moment, so.
But you understand what I'm saying, you can't, yeah, you have to have some outlines, where, whatever. Even if you don't have plans of how much housing you're gonna put, how much retail, it's just, you've gotta have like some of the driveways or something
Starts tomorrow,
on there. Okay.
tomorrow morning, we'll start.
9 to 10, we can assume that you're more concerned about transportation applications, or at least start.
We talked about for sure in detail. Oh,
Well, you have more specifics,
like how far intersection spacing has to be and stuff, or we're getting there at 9 o'clock. We're talking about transportation, we're talking about the issue.
I just don't want to waste my time. I'm putting 9 to 10 cards, and there are the possibilities of looking at.
I will not say that. I will not know that by then, because we're going to bed when we leave here, we're going to dinner, then go to bed, and then we're starting at 9 in the morning. So some of the design team will start working, and I'll be in the meeting. So you will be disappointed if you're coming for that. I can tell you right now, though, as a preview, that I think the city, I don't know if it's just the city, stay tuned, but they don't want connections on 96 except for there's a plan for where? TDOT, same thing.
TDOT does not want, will not put any more curb cuts on 96 except for across.
Oxford Glen.
Oxford Glen, thank you. And there'll be a light warranty.
And you don't have access to that.
That's correct. That's right.
Let the entrance have.
Some entrances, yeah.
You can't be on 96. Where
Okay,
is
so
that?
sorry, there is a, the only place we'll put on flags. Right, so we could consider there's opportunities for Friday ins and Friday outs. But
We said no to curb cut.
Yeah, you're right, go.
So this section between Oxford Glen and the end of the property, the Fort Dragon, are you allowed to create access here? Like the way this is drawn, it's just hard to tell, like.
Yeah, we don't know.
If that gap of land between your line and the road is.
Yeah, those
Yeah,
are
that's
the
right.
things we need to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can have access.
Engineers will be at the meeting in the morning, hopefully representatives from the city or county, both, I don't know, will be there. So we can get into the details more. But we won't be saying like, here's a road, because you can tell you sort of a blank piece of paper and have a plan by the morning. So, yes, you.
Yes. Who is it that hired you?
Yeah, well, not exactly. So we've got, there are a couple of guys who live nearby, have been, they're, I guess, entrepreneurs, you call them, who have been purchasing the parcels for 10 or 12 years, and they've been accumulating it to get to the grouping they have now. They live, I guess, not too far away. And so they're like, oh, this is a likely gateway into the city, that kind of stuff. And so they've been sort of accumulating it. And then, tell the story to you guys, but they saw what we had done with Armistead, having an open public process like this, as opposed to just sort of sneaking around in the shadows and trying to spring a plan on people, that they saw that we did really unique things. And so, they said to us, hey, will you kind of take over this project and run with it?
Does he have a name?
That's what's a little,
LLC.
yeah.
Is there anything they've developed size of this or?
They're not developers.
Developers in LLC?
People that bought our land and.
Well,
But they're-
normally an LLC has a name.
That's AKI Holdings. It's on, you can look it up. It's public record. Yeah. Yeah.
They also are working on a place now, they said, what's it called?
That's a character development.
Yeah, so Craig and I are developing this Armistead project that I was talking about before, across the street from West Haven. And so that's the agri-hood project where we're looking at about 50% conservation. We've got productive agriculture woven throughout, mix of housing types and all of that stuff. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Strangely, it wasn't controversial, even though there's 3,000 homes across the street from us. I'm quite excited about it. Yes.
So what price point do you anticipate, like the residential homes starting?
What do you think?
I can tell you that if it's an acre lot, it'll be very expensive.
Okay. If you do it on your 5,000 square feet lots, like what's the starting point for a house like that?
Well, I mean, it completely depends on the house type, but.
So if you put a small house, a one-story cottage on a 5,000 square foot lot, it's different than if you put one that's 2 stories or 3 stories.
Think about it as a price per square. Right? So, so it would be comparable to probably what's going on across the street.
Like $300?
Sell $300 to $400 a square.
$300 or $400 a square foot.
At least on evening one of the process.
Yeah.
So
We have no idea,
anybody who just wrote that down and is taking notes on that,
You said.
That's right, exactly.
So 2 quick things. All the TDOT and street plans that I've looked at recently show Arno going to 3 lanes as far as. Yeah, you're saying it's 4 lanes.
That's what it said in Envision Franklin, or in the Franklin Connect, so.
Yeah. TDOT plans I've seen to show. Well, it would be Williamson County plans. TDOT, that's not a TDOT road, that's a county road. So, what I have heard is 3 lanes. Because I think that's their, they wanted 4, but then they came back to, when they realized. I mean, they just, the traffic will certainly eventually very soon. That would certainly. About. Right, then if you go 4 and you go in turn lane, then you got 5 lanes and you got Highway 96 running down. And so, but that's how this works, right? Once there's a development, then you do a traffic study, and the traffic study says, here's how you can do that development and improve traffic. And so then it's on the developer to make those improvements as offsite. Right?
So like, for instance, the 65, 96 concerns that they were talking about, it's like, you have opportunities, sometimes we're going to self-serving say, but because of development, then you have opportunities to sort out some of these things. So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like for Armistead, we have to widen 96 for about 2,000 square feet. We have to add a lane, linear feet, 2,000 linear feet. That's what we have to do, because that way it doesn't come out of the capital improvement budget. It comes out of the road impact fees that the developers have to pay. So
it has to belong to the person that.
Right,
but not the neighbors.
So that's what neighbors.
Part 2 3-lane, that 3-lane concept you're talking about, so they're putting like 2 lanes with a 2-way left turn lane in the middle.
Yeah, I think it's it's a turn off, so you can make left turns without stopping traffic.
Yes, ma'am.
You're talking about road widening. What about impact?
Yeah.
Yeah, Franklin has quite a hardy impact
Yes,
structure, which they just decreased actually.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
So percentage? It's I'll have to. I think it's.
Right. It's in
The person that builds the home has to pay the impact.
So I suppose they could altruistically.
Doesn't matter.
Right.
Well, either way, it's like they figure that in their economics. So I'm able to sell it for that much less because they know that price is coming. So it's all, it's spread across the whole economics all down.
That's what you have to realize in the Franklin, those students go to county schools.
They have students.
Not if we annex them. If they're annexed, they would be annexed into Franklin.
Well, it's all Williamson County. It's all Williamson. All Williamson County schools.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Right.
but the school fee is a different one. Right, it's a different fee. So that goes into.
That would be a county. Yeah, we can get into all these details throughout this week if you, I don't mean, we're happy to sit here and talk about this all night long. These are quite detailed questions. So, yes, sir.
Is there a target or ratio of like retail, office, the commercial usage?
Do you have a need for office?
No, I didn't know. So
Yeah.
at the moment you're talking.
Yeah, I mean, everybody talks about retail, it's really commercial, you know, and so that could be a small, you know, shared office space, it could be a retail coffee shop, it could be, you know, daycare, it could be a, you know, a bank, you know, whatever, you know, it's just commercial space versus, we're talking about office parks that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry. Was there anybody else who had one back there that I haven't called on yet? I'm terrible at that. Yes, please. We'll come back to you, sir.
It's not really a question for, you said, you know, to believe you and that you're here and you don't want lying and all of this. I'm not doing that. One of the reasons we are so skeptical is because the developer comes in, we've seen it over and over, come in with a plan. You do a development plan, yes. And then you go to the planning board and ask for modifications, you ask for special circumstances, and then all of a sudden the plan starts to change. And so what we see is not what we get.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
And so that's one of the.
I'll be
reasons
skeptical too then. If I were you.
that we are as skeptical as we are.
Fair enough.
We have seen that happen repeatedly while it's.
Yeah. No, I get it.
want to add one thing. Just because we are in the urban growth boundary does not mean we want high density.
That's right.
And it's not a kumbaya between the city and the county.
Right.
We are in the urban growth boundary against our will.
Yep.
We like land, we like trees, we like that lady said, houses where the kids can play in the yard.
Yeah.
Because we're urban growth boundary does not mean like high density and commercial.
Yeah, fair enough. I fully understand that. I get it. Yes, sir.
You know, I appreciate the opportunity. I'll tell you, I've been a developer power projects.
A developer for what?
Power projects.
Power.
Small power projects.
Yeah.
And every project ever developed.
Like electricity power?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We never developed. When we were at this point, we had a very detailed plan. I really struggle with what you guys are telling us that you do not have a plan.
Okay.
I'm guessing probably that some of this property probably mortgage.
Probably mortgage?
Mortgage.
I don't know.
That's public record too, but I don't think it is.
I've just struggled with have this site laid out, marked out, but you don't have any idea what you're going to do.
Okay, so two choices. One is to say, I'll wait till Tuesday and they'll show me their plan. Or two, play along in this grand charade.
Yeah.
And also known as a charrette. That's what we have. Well, two place for comfort. And
I'll tell you, you guys are very.
we're good. Not tomorrow, next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
Tuesday week.
Tomorrow morning, just sketch paper down on a blank sheet.
They're getting their ROI.
Look, they absolutely would like to make more money on the property than they bought it. That is absolutely, but how they do that is completely undefined. Completely. We would not have taken this project on if that was not the case.
We have credibility in the city, and so for us to do something like that.
You defined it. 4,000 square feet, 65.
No, that's the existing zone. That's the existing entitlements. If we were to get annexed, that would be the existing.
That's what Envision Franklin says.
Zoning change. Village Street. You told me no. That's true.
There's no zoning change. We're still in the county.
Right. So we don't have to say yes.
Absolutely.
Right,
Yeah.
the city would say yes.
Yeah, the city would say yes. You guys can object to it. We want you to participate. Yes, sir.
But this urban growth boundary that you have, so I was just curious, I mean, I was just throwing that out, but like, does that, any pockets that are available then along Murfreesboro, like that nursery across the street? Could a Target go in there? Is that
No.
a Target?
No, it's not. City, Envision Franklin, which city representative was here, but Envision Franklin is not.
I'm thinking of other retail popping up along here.
Yeah. Yeah, if you go on the city's webpage tonight, just download Envision Franklin and just look at it and see what it says. It's very thoughtful and intentional and all of that stuff. And it isn't to sort of perpetuate the box and regional retail and all that stuff. All right, we're losing people quickly here. So I told you I'd stay until.
You had one last question.
Sorry, yes, back to you. Thank you. Yes, right. That's right. I told you I was bad at remembering to call me.
The only point I wanted to make, and it's probably mute because of the way that not you particular, but the stereotypical development has gone is you talk about, when there's nothing here but farms, and then, Albany comes along and Cedarmont comes along, and then every progressive neighborhood has come along, like us in Abington, and then Hurstbourne, the size of the lot has gotten progressively small. So I think between the lots becoming progressively smaller, what we all see around us several miles away from us in all directions, and what we have experienced with the planners of the city and their forethought, which is sometimes just free thought, is that we are all concerned that we've reached a Popeye point as far as higher density, multifamily, multi-use development.
What is Popeye?
Well, we've had all we can stand, we can't stand no more.
Oh. No, I know. I was just like,
So I think all of us that have been in this area over time, the people that were here before me, I'm sorry I came along and made a lot, a half-acre lot.
Shame.
But, all of us experienced massive growth in traffic. And unfortunately for developments like yours, the concept and the drawings and the other one that y'all are working on look nice. But we all think in our brains of more people, more cars, more traffic, and the capability for the city and BOMA and the others to remotely keep up with what they're already authorized as far as other subdivisions further down 96 and south down into Arno and stuff, makes us all go, WTF, there's no freaking way. I mean, that this is going to be successful and not be a cluster for new residents or for existing residents involved. If this development were to come in and say, the home sites, there's going to be a park, there's going to be trails, there might be a small, commercial area at the point or somewhere else within the development, and the home sites are going to be no smaller than the home sites that are, say, in Hurstbourne. Because you look at the other developments that are happening across from McKay's Mill and Market Street and all that area, I think if you look at some of that and they were to develop these, $1 to $2 million home sites, which is probably what it ended up costing, there doesn't seem to be a lack of people that are able to afford $1 to $2 million homes in this area with the number of dang subdivisions that are going up. You don't see subdivisions popping up that have $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 homes in it. Between the cost of construction, the cost of land, and just what people are willing to pay for stuff. So if this development went forward with something like a disjointed looking Hurstbourne, then I think there would not be near as much pushback as a multi-level, multi-family, West Haven, Berry Farms type development. Most everybody that's on this side of 65, and especially this side of Carruthers, moved to this area because, we looked at West Haven when we were moving here. We didn't want that. Nice, but we didn't want that. You are. The Berry Farms development, I got friends that live down there, and they like going in and using their retail, but they like going back to their house in one of the adjacent neighborhoods that's got more of a yard to it. So if this is going to be a Berry Farms or West Haven type development, it's going to be what it's going to be. We're happy to give you feedback and point on it, but I think there'd be much less resistance if it was more of a single family development as Hurstbourne 2.
Yeah.
than something of this multi-district.
Well, and I see like
Well, I agree with him, and I go to a lot of county meetings, Franklin meetings, out to Station Town meetings. I'm part of the care group, Citizens Against Reckless Expansion, not against growth, but we want, if there's gonna be growth, responsible growth. But it's like he said, how many times have I gone to all these meetings? Here's a development, it's gonna be a mixed use development over here, mixed use over here. It's just, we're surrounded by it. And that's why we're resistant, because it's just like, it's too much. There's too many of them, and you present it, no disrespect to you, like this wonderful idea. But that's what all these other development people are saying, the same thing. And how much can this area hold of mixed retail development, especially in these rural areas that we want to stay?
And not just this, I mean.
Well, I appreciate you being here, giving us, giving us this opportunity. I really do. But that's why you need resistance, is like you said, people are kind of up to here with a lot.
Yeah, and you look at what's happening, the whole ovation plan just got resubmitted and reapproved down there in McEwen and Brothers. So that whole big vacant land that's been there for years now is going to start development. There's already development on the other side of that, Center Construction, that's doing the infrastructure and the plumbing and everything along there. And Lord knows there's going to be a lot more. I'm willing to bet my $1,000 more apartments in that area.
Oh, yeah.
So the population density and the traffic density, for all of us that have single family homes, it's just more and more weight on our shoulder. It's like having more kids in college all of a sudden. You look at the bills and it's like, damn.
Well, and to your point about development and just general concern about development, like I share the same concerns, honestly, because for me, like, I always use the old joke, like, there's a new subdivision going in called, Whispering Oaks or whatever. And what they're saying is, this is where I used to be until they cut me down and made development. It's like in memoriam of these oaks that they once were there. You know? Yeah. Is there actually Whispering Oaks neighborhood? Oh, okay. We didn't say anything about anybody's neighborhood. Yeah. So 100 Oaks Mall. How about that? 100 Oaks. Yes. Yeah. So I was thinking about that.
We love to see it,
Yeah. So, and that really is our goal. Ultimately, what we want you all to come out of this saying is, at the end of the week, when we show the plan, you may go like, I wanted it to be a park, or I wanted it to sit. But ultimately, you go like, gosh, if it's got to be development, that's pretty awesome. And what we hear, like for Armistead, for instance, like people are like, okay, well, that's a different context. So it's rural and it's much bigger and all that stuff. But like if we're going to have growth in rural areas that are especially in the city, not in the county, then it needs to be like that. And that's creates a new model for how to do it, as opposed to what was done before. I mean, there's another neighborhood just next to us, whose name I won't say right now, that took a different approach, and kind of on paper, on the map, it sort of is in the same colors on the map as what we're doing in Armistead, and people wouldn't even know it just because it's different and it's up to care, quality, craft, and thoughtfulness. So stick with us this week. I know I can tell who's hardcore by the time we get this hour and who's left. So I thank y'all so much. I hope we will earn y'all's trust throughout the week. Hopefully we can come up with something that y'all, like, oh, this, like, see my ideas reflected in here, and this is all right, okay, I guess, whatever. So, yes, sir.
I'll say one thing, and I'll just sit here and listen most of the thing. But if you build single family 1 acre lots, you won't get any pushback.
That's what I was just gonna say, is that a possibility?
If you do that, you get any pushback. But you already know who is going to push back if you don't do that. You've seen them, you've heard them talk.
Yeah.
And I could go less than that, somewhere less than that.
Yeah, half acre.
Or do I hear?
Some half acre lot. The idea is great. And nothing against any of y'all personally, because I appreciate your time and stuff, but what we say they'll hear, and it'll be taken under advisement. But sadly, from what we've seen from so many developers over the decades, is that BOMA and the city of Franklin, especially if it's going to be annexed in, are going to do whatever's going to feed their coffers and what they think is going to increase tax revenue or whatever else from there, as opposed to other local options.
You're gonna build with the market up there.
Right.
That's what I think.
Not necessarily, like at Arma said, we didn't build what the market could do. We intentionally didn't max out of the density we could build. We didn't.
I think you would,
Right.
Yeah.
The market.
I agree.
Like it, I don't want.
Yeah. Right.
I think you would actually make more money if you made the lots bigger.
And then you would have less people there, and so it would help with the traffic and the overpopulate,
You could put half acre lots there and have, I would be willing to bet if you had half acre to acre lots there and those homes were 2 to 5 million, I'd be willing to bet if there was 100 home sites there, you'd sell it out in 6 months.
She's a realtor, so,
You would.
yeah.
And you'd have less construction issues, less infrastructure issues.
Less pushback from the community.
Yeah, less road
That are moving here from trap areas, usually the prices here, they consider cheaper than where they came from in lower Texas. So to them to pay for a big $100 house, it's not a big deal like it is to a lot of the people who lived here for a long time. And one subdivision that we have near where I live is Harper Woods. It's probably about 50 houses out there. I think it's been there about 25 years. And the lots are about an acre and a half, a piece. And they're laid out nicely. It's a beautiful subdivision. And it's not like too much. When you go out there, they're not looking at each other's faces. It's a well done subdivision. The developer that did that did a good job.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna end with, we all bought out here really because of the quiet. We were all good with driving to Cool Springs because that's what that was built for. And they're just adding great restaurants, there's all things. We didn't move out here to have all that part here. I mean, I get it. You would sell half acre and acre lots just like that.
And people.
Because this is a prime area. I mean, it is. We just never thought this would be developed because there were already homes here. So that's why it's pretty shocking to all of us. I mean, 23 years of real estate. I have never seen where they come in and just buy where there's already homes. I felt so protected here buying here because I'm like, oh, we're good. We got the hidden gem over here and all these great homes in Cedarmont and Albany. You just never thought this would change. So that's why everyone's having a really hard time. We get that they buy a big farm and they do it. People have the right to sell it. It breaks our heart, but they do. But this is something no one expected. I'm telling you, I felt like Chevy Chase. You could sell my face to the carpet. I wouldn't be more surprised than I am right now. That's exactly how I felt last week. It was a gut punch.
Okay.
But the fact that you're doing what you're doing, I want to thank all of you for your time because that is why people have a bad taste is we're sick of people coming in and raping the areas. And that's what it's been. So the fact that you guys, I think you're saying what you say.
Now, if we have these discussions and end up with 1,000 apartments.
Everyone's
we might
gonna
have a
just
little
have
bit
a.
different.
I'll bring a mask to rice.
Okay, so
I'm hearing the bar to clear is 1,000.
we can't go. Yes.
That's all on the brothers now.
Tennessee because of the beauty of Tennessee. That's why they move here. They don't want to live in, and at least even the trees.
So the big challenge is how do you marry growth with conservation? And that is the challenge that we've taken up, and that's what we're trying.
Type of growth, if you've got 100 acres, what are you going to do on that 100 acres? You're going to plant corn. You're going to put tiny houses. You're going to put condos. You're going to put apartments. You're going to put a mix of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Keep
the
the
concept
bigger
of
house,
both
bigger
unit
lots, bigger
mix
houses.
sounds good, but the reality for this particular area and this side of 65, to me, single family homes, or even at least, gosh, I think about it, townhomes or something sounds more. I mean, because you don't want to dramatically increase the density of traffic.
Well,
Single family home.
one thing that's really helpful in what you just said about the why, because I'm obviously done this for 20 years all over the country, and it's not unusual to fill a room like this, but understanding that insight that you just shared is like you thought if it were a farm, you'd be like, oh yeah, of course it's time, it's come. But because it's multiple parcels, if you will, and now it's 80 acres of roughly.
Oh, yeah. I have shown a $5 million home
Yeah.
and come home and thought, I am so happy I'm right
Thank
here.
you. I'm so glad you said that.
I mean, every day of the week. It's
So
like
do you want
this is-
future residents of Arno Village to come home to their 2-bedroom condo or apartment that's got one above them and one below them on the same kind of 3-story level of development and say, oh, I'm so glad to be in this condo? Or for other people to come home that have families, they're not only happy to be there with the yard, but build more and better memories because their kids and family can play in the yard, they can invite their mother and dad over, cook in the backyard, they can do stuff as more of a single family.
Could we have both?
Yeah, I was gonna say, a lot of the discussion is like one or
You
the
want to rent
other.
out the basement?
You know, one of the things, so like, for instance, on this property, because it's so big, Bill, you know, and linear. I mean, in my mind, you know, I'm thinking as we've been talking, I'm like, okay, well, what can we do? And it seems like it's not a one or the other, right? So if we came and said like, oh, we want to do all townhouses or something, like that wouldn't be good. If we said, oh, we want to do all commercial, that wouldn't be good. I know y'all will be okay if we said we'll do all single family, but from our perspective, just as far as like placemaking and making it interesting, all that stuff, because you have so much of these great neighborhoods around, we're thinking, you know, it's like, okay, well, you know, how do we just carve it up into single 1-acre lots, even bigger, as some people said, we're not going to have open space, not going to have parks and trails and all that stuff. And like, because you don't currently in your neighborhoods, right?
Hang on.
Well, we
You
have
can
all the
take-
trees.
You can take 75% of this land and make it a mini governor's club, a gated community, and 1/2 acre to acre lots, and sell the bejesus out of it at $3 to $5 million a lot. I'd be willing to do that. And still have a community park that's adjacent to that with transitions from whatever roadways and that particular development. So you can help with the park idea for the general area community and still maximize your ROI, the land and the dollars invested. I think you're better off aiming at mid to upper market for development than trying to aim in mid and low market.
I
And
agree.
increase the density of the people,
Yes.
population of the traffic.
And you don't hurt our values. Right.
Have you guys been driving down 96 Arno Road
Yes.
at different times of the day?
Yes.
Bridge
And
and try
come
to
look at
turn
how
left.
pretty they love some.
Yes.
Like,
That's rough. I tried to come out of there.
pull out here, turn left. Chickens.
Yeah,
and
here.
see it.
Super scary.
I mean, it's like people go 90 and then they try to rear end it.
That's why
I mean, that's what's happening now.
So when all this.
One of my
is
son's
developed,
classmates.
That's the,
Yeah, every year, some a kid is.
I would also say that if that gets developed, then whoever develops that, whether it's us, next guy, or whatever, is going to have to address that problem. I mean, that's part of it. That's how those problems get addressed.
Well, above y'all, it's just like we were talking about 65 and 96, that impacts your development or impacting your.
It impacts the marketability of our development because traffic is bad. So, you know, traffic and parking and all this kind of stuff, those are.
You can pay me to move to Atlanta, right?
So you'll notice the dynamic. So he's the designer. So he wants it to look a certain way. I want it to pencil a certain way because I'm the guy that does the spreadsheets and he does the plans. And
So
so
we did $3 million homes that all had a YouTube studio in it.
that
There any option though for these like really irregular cutouts? I mean, I understand like.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
And there's not many.